right.
Good to go? All right. Hello, everybody. I'm Yair Silverman, and this is Fun with WebSockets using Socket Puppet. I'm Yair Silverman, also known as Mr. Glass. I work as a web developer. Please don't hate me. Also a freelance hacker and large geek. I work at a company doing mostly PHP backend dev in New York. So WebSockets were created to solve a problem, and that being dynamic web apps. There's a lot of things that need kind of real-time communication. IM is the biggest example, like GChat. Live blogs, you know, Engadget, all those places covering Apple launches. They need live, they want to push out as fast as possible. Collaborative apps, you know, docs or whatever. All these things need very fast, real-time communication so that everything stays in sync. So up until recently, up until HTML5, everybody used Ajax, which kind of sucks. It requires you basically make an HTTP request and send it off to the server. The server sends a response. And that works great for just pulling information, but when you want real time, you have to pull constantly and do this all. Their HTTP requests in the browser are very annoying to work with in general, unless you use the library. They have a lot of overhead, because you have to have a full HTTP packet. And they're latent because you're polling, so you're sending out a message every X seconds, however much you want to have them pinging you. And instead of having real-time communication, they're basically polling every X seconds. And so there's a lot of latency built into that. About 10 years ago, maybe 15, I don't know, somebody came along with this idea of long polling, which is how GChat actually works. So instead of your standard send a request, get a response immediately that might say, no, you don't have a message, long polling works by special server-side software that doesn't send a response right away. So they'll delay for whatever the TTL is, probably about 5 seconds usually. And if you get a response in the meantime, if they get a message for you in the middle of that delay, they'll send right away, oh, you got an IM. Otherwise, at the end of the response time, they'll send an OK back, and you'll poll again. So instead of having to constantly poll every second, you can poll every 5 seconds, and the server can send a message when it has one. But they're very tricky to implement. There's special server-side software, there's a couple different implementations. Terrible hack that relies on not sending a response back right away, which is always expected. And still has some latency. If you've ever had GChat kind of like sit there for a minute, Facebook chat is terrible, it uses this. And has all the HTTP overhead as well. So, don't really gain much over Ajax. It's faster than Ajax, but it's not a great solution. This is a comparison chart for the overhead between WebSockets and Ajax. This is just straight up, they send small packets like a ping or something. And they had 10,000, I think it was 10,000 cases, and the giant blue bar is if you use the standard Ajax, it's full HTTP request, and that little orange bar is the amount of bits you need if you use a WebSocket for the same message. So there's a huge overhead gain when you use WebSockets. And they kind of had to step up their testing to make it actually look like something real, because you can't even see the size of the bars. So WebSockets are awesome. Part of HTML5. They are not ratified yet. There's a working draft. Been stable for a little while. Very simple to use. I don't know if any of you have actually done in-browser Ajax requests native, but they're annoying. You have to have, every browser does it differently, and there's all sorts of handlers you need to do. WebSocket, you just declare a WebSocket. So you say var WebSocket equals new WebSocket, give your URL, and then you can just send a message using the send function. Dead simple to use. Not very common yet. I was really hoping when I decided to do this that I would be able to find a lot more. This is all hidden from you. But not many companies that are real actually use it yet. You'll see hackathon stuff, but Google and none of those places use it. It does have, as of the last time I checked, about 70% of clients out in the wild are using it. All the modern clients have it, but just 70% of users support it. So you will be able to, it's up there, it's ready, and companies are just about starting to use it. So, story time. About 5 months ago now, I lost my job, and while I was going around interviewing in the startup scene in New York, I heard about WebSockets, and a lot of people were interested in them. And I decided to play around with it. I made a stupid browser-based game. And I did real-time stuff with it, and it was fun. And then my game broke, and I tried to debug it. And there was nothing to debug it. I couldn't see the traffic. Since I have found a couple things that let you see the traffic, but I basically had no way to debug my code in terms of seeing the actual traffic being passed. And that made me think, well, clearly I need to make a tool. So I made SocketPuppet. All problems with computer science can be solved by another level of indirection. It's a quote from David Wheeler. He had the first PhD in computer science. And it pretty much holds true. So what I did is I added a layer of indirection inside the browser. SocketPuppet is a Chrome extension, and it overrides the native WebSocket API in Chrome. It just kind of sits on top, and we'll get to how that works in a bit. Passes the information into DevTools, so you can use it, control it, etc. And I have features for logging, sending messages, tampering with stuff. We'll get to that. So this is a diagram made in the organized format. Kind of explains how it works. Your typical web browser on the left is the web page, talks to WebSocket API, goes and talks to the service. And then if you have SocketPuppet, this is just dead simple. You can, web page talks to SocketPuppet instead of the WebSocket API, and you can do every one there. And then you go over to the WebSocket API, which actually sends it. So I'm still using Chrome's WebSocket API, I just sit in the middle. So here's how you can do this for yourself if you want to override a different API. This is very basic, but you need, if you have an extension, there's something called content scripts. They run at the initiation of the page, but your sandbox, you're in a different DOM than the page. So if you have arbitrary JavaScript running, it won't actually run in the page's environment. But you can inject code. So what you do is you grab your script, which does, you create the element, a JavaScript element, just the thing for the DOM. You pipe your actual JS that you want it to be in there into that element source, and then you append it into the head of the document. There is a tiny little race condition at the start of when the page inits. If they have a raw JavaScript script block in the top, it may or may not happen first. But standard for web development is to have it at the bottom, all JavaScript happen at the bottom and after the full DOM loads. So I've never seen it actually affect anything in the real site. So you can put whatever you want into a page with this. You can do whatever you want. So if you want, you can override the alert function and get rid of some annoying alert messages. This is, again, very simple code, but a great example of what this does. And yeah, you just alert equals function alert message. So you're declaring a new function and just overriding the standard alert function. And instead of alert popping up a box now, it'll just log into your console. So when you override one of these APIs, you need to be careful. You need to override the entire interface because all these websites, they use all the elements of the API, and WebSocket API has a lot of stuff in it. So I read a lot of docs. W3C has a lot of docs. Then I found out that Chrome doesn't use the working draft. So I went back and read even more bigger docs. I found out that you need constants for WebSocket API, but you can't do constants in JavaScript, so you have to think of them. There's a lot of little things like that you have to kind of get around. But now I own all the sockets. So I can log all the data, I can listen for events, I can do whatever I want. So I don't know if anyone wants to see me override alert. I think you guys all know how to do that. But you all can use SocketPuppet. It's available now, socketpuppet.everglass.org. Very dead simple to use. Open up DevTools, click on the SocketPuppet tab. That will kind of insert everything, set everything up. Go to your web page. And then you can view transmission logs so you can see the data being sent back and forth, send transmission logs, send arbitrary messages. And I'm going to try to demo this if we have internet. Let us see. So here I have websocket.org's lovely echo test, which is fabulous. You send it a message, it sends a response. So you can see I now in DevTools, because I installed Socket Puppet, have this Socket Puppet tab. I can refresh, and that will make sure. Sometimes it should connect, but just in case I like to refresh. We can actually tell it to use a secure socket, because it doesn't matter to Socket Puppet, so we're going to use SSL. We're going to connect, so you can see it logged. We have a new WebSocket open. The echo test sends this lovely little message, rocket with HTML5 and WebSocket, and just pings back that whatever you sent it. So I can go in using Socket Puppet and send an arbitrary message like, hello. And you can see in the response, the JavaScript code, that box on the right is all populated by the JavaScript code in the page. So it saw when I clicked the send button and sent that message. But when I sent from Socket Puppet, that happened outside the browser knowing. So it received the hello response, and it shows it there. But it doesn't know I sent it. So you can send an arbitrary message. If you did a bunch of stuff, this is dead simple. A lot of real-time applications will have a lot of data coming in, and you probably want to save it and look at it in a thing. So you can click the button, it gives you a text file, nice and easy. There's a clear button that just clears out that log. That's very basic setup, but that let me fix my site, and that is 90% what you need. I quit it and then it goes. There we go. Okay. So advanced usage. You can actually add in a regex statement, and it will fill it out and replace it with whatever you want. You can do that live, so you can kind of replace stuff ongoing. Oh, and I forgot to show you another feature, so I'll demo over that now. So back here, I actually forgot to show you guys. You can actually have it pop up an alert to interrupt every message sent from the browser. So you can go in and send, and it'll just ask you what you want to know. You can hit enter, it'll send the same message. You can change it, so say hacked, whatever. It's very annoying because every time it sends a message, it'll pop up. So again, if you have a real-time chat app, that might get really annoying fast. But pretty cool. Then for the filters, so you can go in here, and I know they always say rocket with HTML5 WebSocket, so I'm going to copy that. I can say I want to switch that, so I want to, every time it says that, I'm going to say hack it with socket puppet. Cool. And now there's a little filter. You can see it there. It's listed. Cool. Every time I send a message, you can see in the log, page asks to send rocket with HTML5 socket, WebSocket, but we send hack it with socket puppet. So we automatically filtered that out and replaced it. So if you have a web page and you want to just automatically change something on the fly, you can do that. It fully supports regex. There's JavaScript regex replacement. So. Oh, great. You may not be able to do full screen anymore. Fun. So. You can, if you want to, if you know JavaScript, you can fork this. This is up on GitHub. You can get the source. You can install an Unpack extension. There's guides on the website. It's very easy to do. And if you edit devtooltab.js, you can add in your own logic to do whatever you want. Please share if you had something cool that's generalized. My boss at work actually wants to fork it and make specific to different websites he uses versions. So you can make a version just for such and such game that will just hack the game and make you infinite life or something. And you can do that. It's very easy to do. There are functions for every time you receive a message, every time you send a message, etc. And you can pretty much play with everything in there. So we're up to wow, I'm running early. We're up to the big demo, which may or may not work. So let's try this. Open up DevTools. Okay, I need a volunteer with a phone. Who has a phone with a barcode scanner? Anybody have a phone with barcode scanner?
But we're not using
You're not using it? You got it? Can you scan the barcode? So this is a game called Duck Shoot. This is a Chrome web experiment. What it does is when you scan the QR code, it connects to your phone. Let me get out my phone. It connects to your phone, and you use the phone to control the game, and it will have the game displayed on the screen, and you use your phone to control the game. Chrome, they like to do these with Chrome to show all the cool HTML5 stuff. So it uses WebSockets, it uses Canvas, it uses a bunch of other things. Here, take my phone. So yeah, it's going to ask you to enter in a name, just put in whatever. So when the phone connects, we should get a message back that it picked up a phone, and that we'll see it in the log, and we'll see the game going. Is it not connecting? Is the browser not opening?
Oh, there it goes. It's crawling along.
What's the phone show?
It's crawling along.
Oh, there, loading. Cool. All right, so you can see it says QR code scanned, and it's actually going to wait like this in the game for her to enter in a name, because they want a name for the leaderboard. So go ahead and just flick up on the screen. That's how you shoot things. Cool, you hit a duck. Good job. So you can see that you have the score going through in there. We're receiving messages with the logic of what the swipe direction and stuff is. And we are responding with whether they hit or not, what the score is. And I saw this when I was looking through, and I went, oh, that should be easy to hack. So you can go in, and you can add in just a regex replacement, score equals plus, so I'm just going to replace any number after score with score, quote, 99999. And now, swipe in, the game's almost over. So you can see that she hit something and it just always sends out score 999, and it says game over, your score is 999. So we can change the score. Unfortunately, if I scroll down on the page, you'll see, I tested this like a month and a half ago, and I didn't look at the leaderboard before I tested it, and I entered in a really big number, and I've never seen the leaderboard broke. So I don't know if I broke it. I don't know if the hack actually works, but I know I sent them a different score. So yeah, that's the best I got. I really tried to find cooler demos. Unfortunately, not many people are using it. You'll actually find a lot of cool like HTML5 web demo, we'll just use WebSockets, and when you start using Socket Puppet, you'll see that most of them are faking it. A lot of the libraries out there will just, they'll fall back, and the older libraries, so they're built to fall back if you don't have a WebSocket. And the older versions will just always fall back for some reason. So you see a lot of the early demos will just fall back. There's one, WebSocket actually has a promotional page where they try to sell you it, and they, oh, somebody scanned a QR code. So they have a promotional page, and they will, they have a promotional page, and it's like all this, and it has like a bunch of stuff popping up. There's a stock ticker, there's a this, there's a that, a bunch of headlines and stuff. And I looked at the WebSocket information. They're like, this is all WebSockets. WebSockets is beautiful. It sends one letter over a WebSocket and does an AJAX request, and then all the data is fake. And it's also static data, doesn't change. So there's a lot of stuff like that. Ah, you lost your AJAX connection, I think. So you'll see a lot of stuff like that. The biggest example of somebody actually using it that I've seen is Stack Overflow. Stack Overflow does the little pop-ups that say you have a new answer. Those are, I think, done over it, but they just send a like yes or no pin out. But they have a WebSocket running, and you can see it. There's not, it's like a letter going over, so nothing too cool to look at. So that's the big demo. It's just not going to work. It isn't going to work. Awesome. So, some ideas for the future. When you browse around, it's kind of invisible when there's a WebSocket as opposed to AJAX. So I really kind of want to have some pop-up or something that shows that you've connected to a WebSocket. I toyed around with having a big button at the top that would glow when there was a WebSocket live, but what I found was that you can't open DevTools from any button. You need to initiate it. The user has to initiate it. You can't have a button that does it. Can't have anything. So that got scrapped, and I'm not sure how to do it. I kind of want to add fuzzing, so you can kind of just open up, have a WebSocket connection, hit a button, and send a bunch of random stuff. But I've never done fuzzing before, so maybe somebody else can add that. Unfortunately, right now there are a couple limitations. I did not code it to accommodate multiple sockets on one web page. I just didn't think about it at first. It's going to take a little bit of architectural change to handle that. It's mostly due to how the Chrome sandboxing works. I didn't get into this, but everything in Chrome is sandboxed, and you actually can't talk to the page from the DevTools panel. So what you need to do is have the page talk to a content script, and so the page is only allowed to talk to the content script, and then the content script is allowed to talk to a background page, which is across all your tabs, and then the background page is allowed to talk to DevTools. None of those are allowed to talk to each other except for that chain. So if you look at the code, you'll see a lot of message passing back and forth, and so I have to kind of keep track, and I keep track of the tab, but I did not think to keep track of which socket the message was for as well. Also, if there's an iframe in the page, I'm just injecting into the DOM of the web page that loads. So if the iframe loads, it's a different DOM, so I can't really get that. I'm thinking about ways to inject it into an iframe, but I haven't done anything yet. And the filter is very, very basic. I threw it together about 2.5, 3 weeks ago. So I want to make it better, not sure how, but it's there. So yeah, that's some of my ideas for the future. I'd love to hear more. I'd love to see people. Yes?
Oh, go ahead. I'm just waiting.
Okay.
Basically.
I'd love to see people fork it and put in stuff. It's very basic JavaScript. You should be able to. So you can grab it. Please, please, please contribute. Even if it's just opening up an issue, if you have a problem on a web page. I have seen some random stuff. My coworkers have been playing with this all week. And they've sent me a couple websites that don't work. Usually it's multiple websites on the page. Thanks, greets to my wife, my brother Spam, Weasel, Shepard, Betamax, and everybody at BSidesLV. Thanks so much for running this thing. And questions?
Okay. Can you manipulate headers with it?
What?
Headers communicate back to the server?
No, I'm not even sure that there are headers in the WebSocket protocol. I haven't actually looked at the actual low-level protocol because I was dealing with just the interface in the browser. Everything I do is in the browser.
So, but is there any caveats on what servers are required to support this, like in the server version? Or?
No, I mean you need. So WebSocket is a new protocol. It is not related. It's not really related to HTTP. And you just need, there's a lot of server software out there to support it. There's pretty much in every language. There's a WebSocket thing available. JavaScript, Node.js, very popular JavaScript for connecting to WebSockets. There's PHP versions, I've seen Python versions, I think I've seen Ruby versions. And it's pretty simple to set up, but I'm not even sure there are headers with each message. There's there's something in the initial setup, but everything I researched, everything I did was about inside the browser. So the API and mucking with that. And it's different than most of the stuff I've seen at cons and all the tools. And you get to interact with it very differently than you do with a lot of the other stuff. And just by its nature of being in the browser, I get by SSH and things like that.
So did you, you said with your chain, are you able to interact, say you're not able to interact directly with the web page that it's embedded in? Can you pull any resources like credentials or other stuff related to a session on that site?
So just in general in Chrome extensions, that's a limitation. If you wanted to, and I know there are viruses that do this, there are pieces of malware that will install an extension. Actually, that's why about a year ago, I think, Google added a feature in Chrome where if an extension is installed from outside of Chrome, it's off by default. And you get a little pop-up saying something was installed and you should look and see if it's a virus. So you can, as I showed, you can inject into the DOM of the page. And when you inject the DOM of the page, you can definitely, if there's a password field in there, you can grab the content of that password field. There are plenty of viruses that do that. And then passing it back is not incredibly hard. There's an API in Google for just passing to another area of the DOM. You know, they have these sandbox DOMs. So that API lets you pass to a different area of the DOM, but you're only allowed from one area to access a certain little area. So you're only allowed to talk to the content script from the web page. And you're only allowed to talk to the background page from the content script or the dev tools, things like that. The limitation in message passing is it needs to be, I think it gets parsed as JSON. You cannot set an actual real JavaScript object. It needs to be able to be serialized.
Can you push down updates to your regular expression filters from the page that you're connecting, or from the WebSocket interface?
You're saying from me?
As far as your plugin, can you push down updates? Like if you want to have something update as it's running, can you update the filters?
So if you wanted to change the filters while it's running, unfortunately I did not. That, like I said, that's like the last thing I made. It's kind of janky interface.
Does it seem reasonable to you that you could implement something like that, adding, say, another socket to it that would pull for regex from a third party or a third-party site once that person had connected?
I mean,
what WebSocket is they're using?
I don't know about a third-party site. Maybe you could certainly do that. That seems like a lot. You could if you were malicious. You could kind of have it check and see what you wanted to do in the server and get data. I do want to add stuff so you can modify these regex statements. I just haven't gotten around to it yet. Any other questions? Anyone? Yes.
Have you thought about making further stuff with Firebug add-on?
So Firebug, I'm not familiar with Firebug. I'm a bit familiar with Firefox extensions itself. Those are all written, I think, in C. I looked into Firefox initially because I actually use Firefox mostly for my web dev. So Firefox, you can't code in JS, you have to code in C. And while I have done that in the past, I decided it was annoying to do. This was far easier to do in Chrome. So you could certainly do the same thing, but the code is not at all compatible. Any other questions? Okay, I guess. Thank you.